Hey guys, tonight we're going back in time. Way back to the creaky wooden doors and echoing stone halls of a medieval university at dawn. Picture yourself standing on those chilly cobbles, your breath clouding in the early morning air as you tug your cloak tighter against the cold. The only sound is the faint rustle of woolen robes and the low murmur of sleepy students gathering in the courtyard. It's the kind of dawn that would make even the bravest of scholars sigh. A dawn that promises a day of lectures in Latin, of endless scrolls and the scent of ink. The kind of dawn where, if you're not careful, you might just fall asleep on your feet. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge across the courtyard, your boots scuffing against the frost-slick stones. The tower bell tolls above you, each slow chime a heavy reminder of the day ahead. The hush of the morning is thick with the sighs of students wrapped in faded cloaks, each one half awake and half dreading what's to come. A young student in an indigo robe stifles a yawn, his fingers curled around the leather strap of a battered satchel. Another, in a saffron cloak that looks more patched than cloth, leans against the cold stone wall, his eyes half-lidded in the blue dawn light. Historians still argue whether these dawn gatherings were more about prayer or simply a moment to brace themselves for the day. Some claim the hush of the courtyard was meant to sharpen the mind, others that it was just the last quiet before the endless drone of the lectures began. You can almost hear it now, the soft scrape of quills, the creak of wooden benches, the low hum of a professor's voice weaving through the dusty air. The students stand in small clusters, their breath rising in pale clouds, the scent of damp wool and old parchment thick in the cold. You feel the weight of your own cloak, the coarse wool scratchy against your skin, and wonder how many lectures you'll sit through today, how many hours you'll spend hunched over a scroll, trying not to nod off as the professor drones on. The courtyard itself seems to sigh around you, the cold stones worn smooth by centuries of shuffling feet. A rooster crows somewhere in the distance, a small, hopeful note in the hush. You smile, because even in this quiet dread, there's a promise that the day might hold something unexpected, something a little more lively than Latin declensions, and as the first rays of the sun slip over the high stone walls, you take a deep breath of the cold, quiet air and let the hush settle around you. Here, in the soft sigh of the morning, the day is just beginning, and you're ready to see what small mischief might be waiting in the shadows. You stand in the hush of the courtyard, your cloak wrapped tight around your shoulders as the bell's last echo fades into the cold morning air. The students around you shift and sigh, each one feeling the same weight of the day ahead. You see how their eyes dart to the heavy wooden doors of the lecture hall, how some seem to shrink into the folds of their cloaks as if hoping to vanish altogether. The doors loom like a promise or a threat of the hours to come. You know what waits inside. The long wooden benches polished smooth by restless students, the air thick with the scent of old ink and damp parchment. The professor will stand at the front, his voice weaving through the dust motes in the pale light of narrow windows. You join the slow shuffle of students across the courtyard, the hush growing heavier with each step. A young man in a russet cloak beside you mutters a soft curse under his breath fogging in the cold. Another clutches a scrap of parchment covered in hurried notes, his fingers stained black from the last desperate scribbles of the night before. Historians still argue whether these lectures were the backbone of learning or a slow torture designed to test the will of every student. Some say the endless hours of Latin verse and theology were meant to shape the mind like a sculptor's chisel. Others claim they were simply a test of who could stay awake the longest. You step inside, the heavy doors closing behind you with a soft thump. The hush of the courtyard becomes the muffled silence of the hall, the only sounds the soft creak of the benches and the low murmur of students settling into their seats. The professor stands at the front, his robes a faded patchwork of indigo and saffron, his eyes sharp as he scans the room. He clears his throat, a small sound that cuts through the hush like a knife, and the students around you straighten in their seats, their hands folded in their laps. You slide onto a bench, the wood cold beneath you, your fingers tracing the deep grooves carved by generations of bored scholars. A small, hopeful part of you wonders if the professor might be in a generous mood today, if the lecture might be something new, something that won't make your eyes grow heavy before the first hour has passed. But as the professor opens his mouth, his voice low and even, you feel that hope flicker and fade. The words are slow, heavy. Each sentence a careful step through the labyrinth of the day's lesson. The students around you shift and sigh, the hush folding tighter around them like the slow drift of sleep. You lean back, your eyes tracing the curve of the wooden beams overhead, the soft flicker of the rushlights that line the walls. The lecture has begun, and already you feel the weight of it pressing down on your shoulders, and in that quiet, as the professor drones on, you find yourself thinking of the courtyard, of the small smiles and soft curses, of the faint glimmer of mischief in the cold dawn light. Because here, in the hush of the lecture hall, you know that even the softest breath can become a promise of something more, a whisper of laughter waiting in the shadows of the day. You shift on the cold wooden bench, your cloak pulled tight around your shoulders as the professor's voice drones on. The air smells of damp wool and dusty parchment, each breath heavy with the weight of the hush. The students around you sit hunched and sleepy-eyed, their heads nodding in time with the low rhythm of the lecture. The professor paces slowly, his hands folded behind his back, the flicker of the rushlights turning the deep lines of his face to soft shadows. His voice rolls on, each carefully measured word echoing in the quiet hall. You watch his lips move, the slow shapes of Latin and logic weaving through the cold air. But your thoughts drift, slipping past the droning words to the small whispers and sideways glances that flicker like bright sparks in the hush. You catch the faint smile of the boy in russet 2 benches ahead, the way he leans back just enough to let his hood slip over his eyes. You see the girl in teal at the edge of the room, her hand moving in slow, careful circles on a scrap of parchment as she doodles flowers instead of notes. Historians still argue whether these students truly believed the lectures were the key to knowledge or simply a ritual to be endured. Some say the hush of the hall was sacred, a place where the mind could bloom in quiet study. Others claim it was a cage, a soft, heavy silence that pressed every dream flat against the cold stone walls. You lean back, your head resting against the rough wood, and feel your eyelids grow heavy. The professor's words blur and blend, each one the same as the last, a slow tide of sound that lulls you into the soft edges of sleep. But then, just a flicker in the hush, you hear it. A soft word, a whispered laugh, a breath of mischief that cuts through the quiet like a bright, warm thread. You sit up, your eyes catching the faint gleam of a smile across the room. The boy in russet is leaning close to the girl in teal, his hand cupped around his mouth, his eyes bright with a secret plan. You see the way she nods, the small, quick tilt of her head that says yes, yes, let's do it. The hush of the lecture hall doesn't break, but it shivers around them, a soft ripple of something that doesn't belong to the slow, heavy tide of the professor's words. You watch as the boy in russet slips his hand into his cloak, pulling out a small bundle wrapped in rough linen. You catch the faintest glimpse of feathers, a flicker of white, a promise of chaos in the soft, patient hush. Your heart beats faster, the hush around you alive with the small, bright promise of something more. You lean forward, your breath slow and even, and wonder what it would take to turn this quiet tide into laughter. And as the professor drones on, his voice a slow, heavy river, you feel the hush shift around you, the faint whisper of feathers in the dark, an echo of mischief waiting to bloom. The hush of the lecture hall folds tighter around you, the soft weight of the professor's voice pressing on your shoulders like a woolen cloak. You watch as the boy in russet slips the bundle of feathers deeper into his satchel, his eyes bright beneath the heavy hood of his cloak. Beside him, the girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers tracing careful lines on the wooden desk as she tries to look studious. But you see the small smile that tugs at the corner of her mouth, the soft, secret promise of laughter hiding just beneath the hush. The professor turns, his sharp gaze sweeping the hall, and every student shifts and sighs, their eyes lowered, their hands folded on the rough wood of the desks. But the hush has changed. It hums with a quiet excitement, a soft breath of mischief that pulses in the stillness. You glance down at your own cloak, the rough weave scratchy against your skin, and you wonder how many cloaks have hidden small rebellions in these halls. The students around you seem to shrink into the folds of their wool, the hush a heavy blanket that muffles every breath. Historians still argue whether these cloaks were symbols of devotion or quiet defiance. Some say the heavy wool was meant to bind the student to the discipline of study, others that it was simply a way to hide a yawn, a secret note, or, on days like today, something much more feathered. The boy in russet leans forward, his hand slipping under his cloak as he brushes against the girl in teal. You see the way she glances at him, her eyes bright with shared mischief, and you feel the hush shift again. A soft tide turning, ready to break. The professor clears his throat, a small, sharp sound that cracks through the hush. He narrows his eyes, scanning the room, and for a moment the laughter you can almost taste freezes in your chest. But then the boy in russet leans back, his cloak folding around him like a soft shield, and the hush softens, bending around his quiet calm. The professor sighs, his shoulders sinking, and turns back to the worn scroll spread across the lectern. You see the small spark of relief in the boy's eyes, the girl's faint smile as she leans closer, her voice a whisper lost in the hush. You know the plan is set, that in the folds of these cloaks and the quiet weight of the hush, something bright and mischievous is waiting. The hush of the hall isn't broken. It's alive, a soft, patient breath that holds every secret glance, every hidden smile, every quiet dream of laughter that grows in the shadows, and as you sit there, your fingers curled tight in the rough wool of your cloak, you feel the hush shift around you, the faint, bright promise of feathers and laughter woven into every quiet breath. The hush of the lecture hall grows deeper, the slow rhythm of the professor's voice weaving through the cold air. You watch as he paces, his long robes a patchwork of indigo and saffron that swish softly with every careful step. The hush holds it all, the echo of his footsteps, the faint scratch of quills on parchment, the low, patient sigh of students trying to keep their eyes open. You shift in your seat, the wooden bench hard against your back, and feel the weight of the morning settle into your bones. The hush seems to thicken with every breath, pressing the soft smell of beeswax and ink deeper into your chest. You can almost taste it, the dry tang of old parchment and the faint, sweet scent of rosemary from the small bundles tucked into the rafters. A student in a faded russet cloak 2 benches over slumps forward, his forehead resting on his folded arms, and the professor pauses, his sharp gaze catching the small rebellion in the hush. He clears his throat, a small, sharp note that cracks through the quiet, and the boy lifts his head slowly, his cheeks flushed pink in the cold light. You see the way the professor's eyes narrow, how his lips tighten as he studies the boy, and for a moment the hush seems to hold its breath. But then the professor sighs, his shoulders slumping just a fraction, and he turns back to the scroll before him, his voice resuming its soft, steady drone. Historians still argue whether these lectures were a gift or a burden. Some say they were the keys to a world of wisdom, others that they were a slow, quiet prison. Each word another brick in the heavy walls of the hush. You lean back, your eyes tracing the long, thin windows that let in the pale light of the winter sun. The air outside shivers with frost, but here, in the hush of the hall, the only movement is the slow drift of breath and the faint flicker of rushlights that dance on the stone walls. The boy in russet leans back in his seat, his eyes bright now with something more than sleep. You see the way his hand slides under his cloak, the small bundle hidden there shifting with each slow breath. The girl in teal glances at him, her lips parting in the faintest smile, and you feel the hush shift again, a soft ripple of laughter that waits just beyond the edge of the quiet. You watch as the professor turns back to the hall, his voice low and steady, the hush folding around him like a cloak. But you see the small flickers of movement, the quick glances, the slow, secret smiles that grow in the shadows. The hush isn't just silence. It's a space where dreams can bloom, where laughter can grow like a small, bright flower in the cold. And in that hush, you feel the promise of something more, a flicker of feathers, a breath of mischief that waits in the soft, patient quiet of the hall. You watch the hush of the lecture hall hold every breath, every small shift of cloak and flicker of eyelash. The professor's voice flows steady as a winter stream, each word a stone dropped into the slow, patient quiet. Around you, the students shift in their seats, the weight of the morning pressing on their shoulders like the cold stones of the abbey walls. But your eyes are drawn to the 2 figures slipping away from the edges of the room, the boy in russet and the girl in teal, their steps soft and sure as they weave through the hush. You see the way their cloaks fold around them, hiding the small bundle that glimmers with the promise of feathers and mischief. They move like shadows, the hush folding around their laughter, turning each soft step into a promise of something bright. You follow them with your eyes, the slow rise and fall of your breath matching the quiet rhythm of their careful steps. They slip through a narrow door at the back of the hall, the old wood creaking just enough to catch the professor's sharp gaze. He pauses, his words trailing off for a moment, but the hush covers the small rebellion, turning it into nothing more than a breath in the cold air. Historians still argue whether these quiet departures were tolerated or simply overlooked. Some say the professors knew the weight of the lectures was too much to bear without the small relief of a whispered laugh, others that it was a secret game, a quiet dance played in the shadows of the hush. You lean back in your seat, your fingers tracing the worn grain of the bench, and you feel the hush shift around you, alive with the soft, bright promise of the two students slipping away. You can almost see them now, ducking into the narrow stone passage that leads to the market stalls beyond the abbey walls. The air there is sharp with the scent of winter herbs and wood smoke, the quiet murmur of merchants and the soft cluck of chickens wrapped in straw baskets. The hush of the lecture hall fades into the gentle buzz of the marketplace, but even there, you feel the quiet breath of mischief that binds the two together. The girl in teal leans close, her breath a warm ghost of laughter in the cold air, and the boy in russet grins, his hands wrapped tight around the small bundle that holds their secret. You see the way they move together, the hush of the lecture hall folded into the bright, quick steps of their escape, and in that soft rebellion, in the quiet breath of laughter that blooms in the hush, you see how even the cold, patient weight of stone and scroll can't hold back the small, bright spark of mischief that grows in every whispered breath. The hush of the lecture hall is a memory now, left behind in the cold echo of the stone walls as you slip into the bright, soft chaos of the market square. The boy in russet and the girl in teal move ahead of you, their cloaks pulled close, each step quick and sure on the worn cobblestones. The air here is alive with the soft murmur of merchants and the bright cluck of chickens in wicker baskets, the warm scent of fresh bread and sweet herbs weaving through the morning light. You see how the girl in teal leans closer to the boy, her eyes bright with laughter, the small bundle of feathers tucked safe beneath her arm. A merchant in a faded indigo tunic calls out a soft greeting, his hands full of plump apples that glisten in the cold sun. The boy in russet pauses, his fingers brushing the fruit, but his eyes stay on the small, restless shape of the chicken hidden beneath the linen wrap. Historians still argue whether these small market trips were a quiet rebellion or simply a chance to breathe outside the heavy hush of the abbey. Some say the students traded secrets in the shadows of the stalls, others that it was just an excuse to find warmth in the bright glow of the morning. You see the two students exchange a quiet glance. The soft, quick flash of a smile that says they know something the world does not. They slip past the merchant, the hush of the market folding around them, each step a quiet promise of the mischief to come. The girl in teal reaches for a small sprig of rosemary hanging in a basket, her fingers brushing the soft green leaves as she tucks it into the folds of her cloak. You see how she glances back at the boy, her smile a soft, bright light in the hush. The boy in russet grins, his hands steady on the small bundle that holds their secret. The chicken rustles beneath the linen, a faint cluck lost in the soft murmur of the market, and he presses it closer to his chest, the hush of the morning alive with the promise of their plan. You watch them disappear down a narrow alley, the bright chatter of the market fading into the quiet breath of the cold stone walls. You follow, your footsteps soft and sure, the hush wrapping around you like a cloak, and in that gentle hush, in the soft promise of laughter hidden in the folds of their cloaks, you feel the bright spark of something that cannot be contained. A small, feathered rebellion ready to bloom in the quiet heart of the abbey. The hush of the alleyway folds around you as you slip through the narrow shadows, your breath clouding in the cold air. The girl in teal moves ahead, her cloak swishing softly against the rough stone, the small bundle of feathers held close to her chest. The boy in russet walks beside her, his eyes bright in the dim light, a quiet laughter held in the soft curve of his lips. You see how the hush changes here, turning the soft murmur of the market into a gentle echo that dances in the cold air. The alley is a world of its own, stone walls worn smooth by centuries of quiet footsteps, the faint scent of wood smoke and rosemary drifting from the gardens beyond. The boy in russet pauses, his hand resting on the girl's shoulder as he leans close, his voice a soft murmur that blends with the hush. She laughs, the sound quick and bright, and you see how the hush seems to shimmer around them, turning each breath into something warm and bright. Historians still argue whether these small, secret moments were acts of rebellion or simply a gentle breath of freedom in the heavy weight of the abbey's hush. Some say the cloaks were a shield, a soft promise of safety for the mischief they carried. Others claim it was just a game, a way to make the hush their own for a little while. You watch as the girl in teal reaches up, her fingers brushing the small sprig of rosemary tucked into the boy's cloak. She tucks it deeper into the folds, her touch soft as a promise, and he grins, the hush alive with the quiet thrill of their plan. They move on, the hush folding around them like a soft tide, each step a small, careful promise. You see how the girl pauses to press her hand against the rough stone, the hush of the alley turning her breath to mist in the cold light. The boy in russet glances back, his eyes catching yours for a moment, and in that brief glance you feel the spark of laughter that waits just beyond the hush. You smile, your breath slow and sure, and follow them deeper into the soft, secret quiet of the alley. The world narrows to the soft shuffle of feet, the quiet rustle of cloaks, the gentle cluck of the chicken hidden in the folds. And in that hush, you feel how even the cold, patient weight of stone can be turned to laughter with nothing more than a shared breath and a small, bright promise of feathers. You follow them through the winding alleys, the hush folding around every step like a soft, secret promise. The girl in teal leads the way, her cloak swaying with each careful movement, the small bundle of feathers safe against her chest. The boy in russet walks close beside her, his eyes bright, each breath a quiet laugh that shivers in the cold air. They pause at a low wooden door, its hinges worn and quiet as the girl pushes it open. The hush deepens as you step inside, the soft glow of a single rushlight painting the rough stone walls with flickering gold. The room is small, a simple sanctuary from the cold morning, stacks of parchment, a single bench worn smooth by years of quiet study. The girl sets the bundle gently on the bench, her fingers lingering on the soft linen that hides their secret. The boy pulls back his hood, his hair damp with frost, and you see the small spark of mischief that dances in his eyes, bright and warm in the hush. They lean close, their voices no louder than a breath, weaving a plan in the soft, golden light. You catch fragments of their laughter, the way it slips like honey through the hush, and you see how even here, in the quiet of the library's forgotten corners, the promise of feathers and laughter waits. Historians still argue whether these quiet conspiracies were acts of rebellion or small, gentle rebellions. Some say the hush was meant to hold them in check, others that it was simply a space where laughter could bloom in the soft dark. The girl unwraps the linen, and for a moment the hush seems to hold its breath. The chicken peeks out, its bright eye glinting in the flickering light, its soft cluck a quiet song in the patient silence. The boy laughs softly, his hand brushing the smooth feathers, and you feel how the hush shivers around them, a promise of chaos hidden in the soft, warm dark. They sit close together on the bench, the chicken safe between them, and you watch how the hush folds around their laughter, how it weaves each breath into something bright and warm. The girl's fingers trace the smooth line of the chicken's back, the boy's eyes bright as he whispers his plan. You feel the hush settle deeper, the soft promise of mischief a slow, patient tide that hums in every breath. The room smells of old parchment and beeswax, the warm scent of rosemary still clinging to the folds of their cloaks. And in that hush, you see how even the smallest breath of laughter can turn the quiet into something alive. The chicken clucks again, the soft rustle of feathers a gentle echo in the hush, and the girl smiles, her eyes bright with the promise of what comes next. You watch them rise, the hush folding around them like a soft cloak, and no, the quiet isn't just silence. It's the breath of something bright, something that will bloom in the laughter of the day to come. The hush of the small library deepens around you, the faint scent of old parchment and beeswax thick in the cold morning air. The boy in russet leans over the chicken, his fingers brushing the soft feathers as the girl in teal carefully tucks the linen wrap back around it, each fold a quiet promise of mischief. They share a glance, their eyes bright in the flicker of the rushlight, and you feel how the hush hums with the warm, patient breath of laughter waiting to bloom. The girl's lips curve in a small, secret smile, the boy's fingers tapping a slow rhythm on the wooden bench, a soft drumbeat that echoes the quickening pulse of your own heart. You watch as they stand, their cloaks swirling softly around their feet, the chicken hidden once more in the folds of quiet wool. They move like shadows through the small stone room, each step measured, each breath held close in the hush. A soft creak of the door, the cold air slipping in like a sigh, and they're gone, the hush folding back around the empty space they leave behind. You follow, the worn stones cold beneath your feet, the weight of the hush a gentle tide that carries you forward. The corridor beyond is narrow, the flicker of rushlights catching the deep lines of old stone, the soft weight of centuries settling into every crack. You hear the faint echo of footsteps ahead, the hush bending around each quiet breath, and you feel how it holds them safe, the soft promise of feathers and laughter hidden deep in the folds of their cloaks. Historians still argue whether this corridor was meant to be a quiet path of study or simply a place to slip away when the weight of the lecture hall grew too heavy. Some say it was a secret sanctuary, others that it was a forgotten byway that turned every quiet step into a small act of rebellion. The boy in russet glances back, his eyes bright in the flicker of the rushlight, and you see the faint, soft promise of laughter in the hush. The girl in teal touches his arm, a gentle press of fingers that says more than any word, and they move on, their steps light and sure in the quiet dark. You walk slower, letting the hush wrap around you, the soft breath of the abbey a quiet song in your chest. The cold air tastes of damp stone and rosemary, the faint scent of warm bread drifting from somewhere far beyond the hush, and in that hush, in the slow, careful rhythm of breath and step, you feel the soft weight of the plan they carry, the small, bright promise of feathers and laughter that will turn the quiet into something warm and alive. You pause at the end of the corridor, the rushlight flickering low, and watch them disappear around the corner, the hush settling like a soft tide in the empty air. The quiet is deep and patient, but you know that somewhere in the folds of those cloaks, the laughter is already waiting, ready to bloom in the bright, warm heart of the day. You follow them as they slip through the cold shadows of the abbey's back halls, the hush wrapping around each footstep like a soft, knowing secret. The girl in teal moves ahead, her cloak gathered close around the small bundle of feathers. The boy in russet trails just behind, his eyes bright with the promise of mischief that flickers in the hush. They pause at a heavy wooden door, its iron hinges worn smooth by centuries of careful hands. You see the faintest tremor in the girl's breath as she lifts her fingers to the latch, the hush of the corridor holding every small sound close. The door swings open, the cold air of the lecture hall slipping out like a sigh. You see the rows of benches in the pale light, the quiet forms of students hunched in the hush, their eyes half closed as the professor's voice weaves slow and patient through the cold air. The boy in russet grins, the soft curve of his lips a quiet promise, and you feel your own breath catch in the hush, a bright spark of laughter hidden in the soft dark. The girl steps forward, her cloak swirling around her ankles, and you watch as she sets the small bundle down on the edge of the last bench. She glances back at the boy, her eyes bright with the secret they share, and he nods, his hand resting lightly on the worn wood of the door. Historians still argue whether this moment was born of boredom or brilliance. Some say it was a simple prank to break the weight of the hush, others that it was a soft rebellion, a small, bright light in the quiet world of parchment and ink. You watch as the girl lifts the linen, her fingers quick and sure in the soft light. The chicken blinks in the flicker of the rushlights, its small, bright eye catching the glimmer of the quiet morning. A soft cluck, no louder than a breath, and the hush shivers, the quiet turning on the edge of laughter. The boy leans closer, his lips parting in a breathless grin, and you see how the hush bends around them, holding the small, bright promise of feathers and laughter close. The chicken ruffles its feathers, the soft rustle of wings a quiet echo in the stillness, and you feel how even the patient hush of the abbey can't hold back the bright bloom of mischief. The girl steps back, her fingers brushing the rough wool of the boy's cloak, and you see how the hush waits, holding its breath in the quiet dark. You lean forward, your heart quick in your chest, and know, this moment will break the hush, turn the quiet into something warm and bright. And in that soft breath, in the slow shift of the girl's smile, you feel the promise of laughter. Ready to bloom, ready to turn the hush into a song. You watch the hush of the lecture hall grow taut as the girl in teal steps back, her fingers lingering on the edge of the linen-wrapped bundle. The chicken shifts beneath the cloth, a small, soft rustle that seems to echo through the cold air. Every breath holds a note of anticipation, Every rustle of cloak a quiet drumbeat that trembles in the hush. The boy in russet lifts his head, his eyes bright as he catches the professor's slow, patient drone. You see the faint smile at the corner of his lips, the promise of laughter that waits behind the hush. His fingers tighten around the edge of the bench, and you feel how the quiet stretches, thin as a breath. The professor pauses, his eyes sweeping the rows of sleepy students, the hush of the hall deep and thick as winter fog. Historians still argue whether the professors truly sensed the brewing mischief or if they were lost in the slow weight of their own words. Some say the hush was their fortress, others that it was a blindfold that let laughter slip in unnoticed. You see the girl glance at the boy, her eyes bright and quick, and in that shared glance, the hush holds its breath. The boy nods, a soft, secret promise, and the girl lifts the edge of the cloth. The chicken blinks in the sudden light, its feathers bright as a spark in the cold air. A soft cluck, small and sweet, and the hush shivers, a quiet ripple that runs through the silent rows. For a moment, everything holds still, the hush a single, fragile note. Then the chicken flaps its wings, feathers ruffling in the flicker of the rushlights, and the hush breaks like thin ice underfoot. The professor's eyes widen, his mouth open in a wordless gasp, and the students freeze, their hands caught in the stillness of the moment. The hush wavers, the soft, secret quiet cracking open like a bright, warm laugh. The chicken clucks again, louder now, the sound bright and round in the cold air. It hops off the bench, wings flapping in small, determined bursts, and the hush shatters into a low, bubbling tide of laughter. You feel it in your own chest, the soft, sudden warmth of a smile you can't hold back. The girl in teal covers her mouth, her eyes dancing, and the boy in russet laughs, a soft, warm sound that cuts through the last threads of the hush. The professor stands frozen, his hands outstretched as if to catch the small, bright chaos that blooms in the quiet. You see how the hush folds around him, how it tries to gather itself again. But the laughter is already there, bright and warm, a soft breath of rebellion in the quiet world of parchment and ink, and in that small, bright moment, you feel how even the deepest hush can be turned to laughter with nothing more than a flicker of feathers and the promise of a shared secret. The hush of the hall is gone now, replaced by the soft, bright music of laughter that spills like warm honey through the cold morning air. You watch as the chicken flaps its wings, hopping from bench to bench, the soft thud of clawed feet a gentle counterpoint to the bubbling giggles that fill the room. The professor's eyes are wide, his mouth working silently as he tries to find the right word, any word, to pull the hush back around him. But the hush has fled, leaving only the bright, warm glow of laughter and the soft, feathery rustle of wings. The chicken clucks and flutters, its feathers bright in the flicker of the rushlights. You see the girl in teal press her hand to her mouth, her shoulders shaking with quiet giggles. The boy in russet leans back, his head thrown back in soft, breathless laughter. The hush turned to something bright and alive. Historians still argue whether this moment was a simple prank or a small rebellion. A gentle thumb in the eye of every dusty scroll and every patient sigh of the lecture hall. Some say it was nothing more than mischief, others that it was a promise that even in the quietest places, laughter can still find its way. The professor steps forward, his robe swirling around his ankles, and you see the faint pink in his cheeks, the small, tight smile he tries to hide. The hush tries to creep back, a thin, wobbly line around the edges of the laughter, but the soft cluck of the chicken breaks it each time, turning the quiet back to bright, warm light. You watch as the chicken hops onto a low bench, its bright eyes glancing around as if to say, "Yes, here I am, in the middle of your hush, and I have no intention of leaving." The students laugh, their voices soft and bright in the quiet that is no longer a hush but a soft, warm tide that holds every giggle close. The girl in teal lifts her head, her eyes shining, and you see how the hush has turned her quiet smile into something bright and brave. The boy in russet leans close, his hand brushing hers for just a moment, and in that small touch you feel the gentle weight of the laughter they've let loose in the cold air, and you smile too, because even here, where the hush once held every breath in careful silence, the bright, small promise of a feathered friend has turned the quiet into something alive. A small rebellion, a soft song of laughter that echoes in the flicker of the rushlights and the bright, warm glow of every shared glance. You lean back on the bench, the laughter warm in your chest, And no, the hush will return, slow and patient, but for this moment, the quiet is alive with feathers and laughter, and that is enough. The laughter of the hall drifts like soft music in the cold air. The gentle clatter of benches and the low, warm hum of voices weaving together in a bright tapestry of joy. The hush is gone, at least for now, replaced by the quiet promise of laughter shared and secrets kept close. You watch the girl in teal as she leans against the wooden bench, her eyes bright, her lips curved in a smile that seems to catch the flicker of the rushlights and turn it to gold. The boy in russet stands beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. The hush around them turned to a gentle glow. The chicken clucks and flutters, its small, bright presence a soft echo of the mischief that sparked the laughter. You see how it pauses, its bright eye catching the rushlight's glow, and then hops down from the bench to scratch at the cold stone floor. The laughter softens around it, turning to quiet chuckles and gentle sighs, the hush returning in small, warm breaths. Historians still argue whether these moments of laughter were welcomed or quietly scorned. Some say the professors turned a blind eye, others that they smiled into their sleeves and let the hush go for just a little while. Because even the coldest stone walls can warm to a small rebellion, to the bright promise of laughter that can't be silenced. The professor stands at the front of the hall, his hands folded in the deep sleeves of his indigo robe, and you see the faintest smile at the corners of his mouth. The hush has cracked around him, but he doesn't seem angry, only tired and maybe a little amused, the way one might be by a kitten tumbling in a basket of wool. The girl in teal leans close to the boy in russet, her voice a soft whisper that blends with the gentle cluck of the chicken. You see the way he grins, the small tilt of his head that says yes, this was worth it, and you feel your own breath catch in the warmth of their laughter. The hush is not gone. It's just resting, wrapped around the edges of the room like a soft blanket. The students begin to settle back into their seats, their smiles bright and secret in the gentle quiet. You see how the hush returns not as silence, but as a promise, a soft space that can hold laughter as easily as prayer. The chicken clucks once more, a soft, bright sound that turns the hush into a gentle lullaby. You watch as the girl in teal gathers it close, her fingers careful on the soft, warm feathers, and the boy in russet folds his cloak around them both, the quiet breath of the hall wrapping them in the hush once more, and you know that even here, in the quiet heart of the Abbey's hush, there will always be a place for laughter. A small, bright spark that turns the cold air warm and the silence into something alive. You lean back on the cold wooden bench, the last flickers of laughter fading into the soft hush that slowly returns. The rushlights flicker against the worn stone walls, their gentle glow turning the quiet into something warm and kind. Around you, the students settle into the hush once more, but their smiles linger, bright and secret in the soft dark. The girl in teal gathers the chicken close, tucking it back into the folds of her cloak with gentle hands. You see how her eyes still dance with the memory of laughter, how the hush bends around her, no longer heavy, but light and soft as a breath. The boy in russet leans close, his shoulder brushing hers as he murmurs something that makes her smile. The hush holds them both, a soft cradle for the quiet promise they share. A promise that even the coldest stone can be warmed by laughter. The professor clears his throat, a small, dry sound that ripples through the hush like a pebble dropped into still water. He looks out over the rows of students, his eyes catching the small, bright glimmers of smiles, and for a moment you see the hush waver, as if it too is holding its breath. Historians still argue whether these quiet moments of rebellion were remembered or quietly erased. Some say the professors wrote them off as childish mischief, others that they carried the memory like a small, warm ember, a bright promise hidden in the folds of dusty scrolls. You watch as the girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers stroking the soft feathers of the chicken hidden in her lap. The boy in russet smiles, his eyes bright as he leans back in his seat, the hush folding around him like a soft cloak. The professor sighs, his hands resting on the worn edges of the lectern, and you see the faintest smile flicker across his face. He lifts his gaze to the quiet hall, his voice soft as he begins to speak once more, and the hush deepens, wrapping every word in its gentle breath. You settle back, your own breath slow and steady, and feel how the hush is not the enemy of laughter. It's the cradle that holds it safe. Even here, in the cold stone heart of the Abbey, the hush knows how to make room for small rebellions, for bright, warm glances shared in the soft glow of the rushlights. The girl in teal leans her head against the boy's shoulder, and you see the hush bend around them, a soft promise that the laughter is never lost. It lingers, warm and secret in the hush, waiting for the next bright spark to turn the quiet into a song once more. And as the professor's voice weaves through the hush, you smile, knowing that somewhere in the folds of every cloak, in the quiet corners of every whispered breath, the small, bright promise of feathers and laughter waits, ready to bloom in the hush of another day. The hush of the hall grows deeper as the professor's voice rolls on, low and steady in the soft glow of the rushlights. You watch as the girl in teal cradles the chicken close, the small bundle shifting in the folds of her cloak with each quiet breath. The boy in russet leans back in his seat, his head tilted just enough to catch the faint smile on her lips. The hush is not the same now. It's softer, warmer, filled with the echo of laughter that lingers like the sweet scent of rosemary in the cold air. Around you, the students sit with bright eyes and small, secret smiles, the quiet no longer heavy but gentle and alive. The professor pauses, his hand resting on the edge of the lectern, and you see how his eyes linger on the girl in teal, how his lips twitch with the memory of the small, bright chaos that turned the hush into laughter. He doesn't scold, doesn't frown, just lets the hush settle again, patient and soft as the slow drift of snow outside the narrow windows. Historians still argue whether these small moments of rebellion were part of the life of the abbey or small cracks in the careful walls of silence. Some say the laughter was a sin, others that it was a small, sweet prayer to the quiet heart of the hush. The girl in teal glances at the boy, her hand shifting just enough to brush against his, and in that small touch, you see the gentle promise of another bright spark, another quiet laugh waiting to bloom. You lean back, your breath slow and even, and let the hush fold around you like a warm cloak. The hush holds it all, the soft, patient words of the professor, the slow flicker of the rushlights, the gentle curve of the girl's smile. You feel how it cradles each quiet breath, each small, warm memory of laughter turned loose in the cold stone hall. The boy in russet lowers his head, his fingers tracing the rough grain of the wooden bench, and you see how the hush holds him too, how it bends to the quiet glow of his breath. The chicken shifts again, a soft cluck lost in the gentle rhythm of the hush, and the girl in teal laughs, a soft sound that brightens the quiet like a candle in the dark, and in that small, warm moment, you understand. The hush is not the end of laughter. It's the breath that holds it close, the soft, patient cradle that keeps each bright spark safe in the quiet heart of the abbey. You close your eyes, your breath deep and sure, and let the hush settle into your bones. Because even here, in the cold, quiet dark, you know the laughter is never gone. It's just waiting, a small, bright promise wrapped in the soft hush of the abbey's night. The hush of the hall settles deep and patient as the professor's voice drifts over the rows of wooden benches, a low, steady hum that weaves through the warm glow of the rushlights. You watch the flicker of shadows across the stone walls, each soft curve of light holding the memory of laughter that still glimmers in the quiet. The girl in teal shifts in her seat, her hand resting gently on the small bundle hidden in her cloak. The boy in russet leans back, his eyes half closed, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. The hush folds around them, soft as wool, holding each breath and each secret glance close. A young monk in indigo moves quietly down the narrow aisle, his steps careful and sure. He carries a small wicker basket of fresh bread, the warm scent of yeast and honey trailing in his wake. The hush bends to his movement, the soft rhythm of his steps turning the quiet into something that hums with gentle life. Historians still argue whether this hush was meant to be unbroken or simply to cradle the small moments of warmth that bloom in the cold stone heart of the abbey. Some say the quiet was a shield against the world, others that it was a space to let the soul breathe in slow, steady peace. You see the girl in teal glance up at the monk, her eyes bright in the soft glow, and she lifts her hand in a small, quiet greeting. The boy in russet follows her gaze, his fingers drumming a slow, gentle rhythm on the edge of the bench, a soft echo of the laughter that turned the hush bright just moments before. The monk pauses, his eyes meeting theirs, and you see the small smile that tugs at the corners of his mouth, a warm spark of understanding that flickers in the hush. He leaves a piece of bread on the edge of their bench, a small, quiet blessing, and moves on, the hush folding back around his careful steps. The girl in teal breaks off a piece of the bread, the crust soft and warm in her fingers, and passes it to the boy. He takes it with a small nod, the hush holding the quiet promise between them like a soft, warm blanket. You feel the hush in your own chest, the slow, patient rhythm of it settling deep in your bones. The flicker of the rushlights, the faint scent of bread and rosemary, the soft breath of the girl as she leans close to the boy, each one a small, quiet prayer to the warmth that lives in the hush. And in that soft, bright moment, you understand. The hush is not empty. It's a cradle for every quiet laugh, every gentle breath, every small, warm promise that even in the coldest stone hall, the heart can still bloom. You feel the hush settle deeper around you, warm and soft as the flickering rushlights that paint the stone walls with gentle gold. The professor's voice carries on, a low, steady tide that holds every small breath, every slow shift of cloak and hand in its patient embrace. The girl in teal tucks the last crumb of bread into the folds of her cloak, her fingers brushing the soft feathers hidden there. The boy in russet leans close, his shoulder pressing against hers, and you see how the hush holds them both. How it cradles the quiet laughter that lingers like the sweet scent of rosemary in the cold air around you. The other students sit with eyes half-lidded, their breath soft and slow in the gentle hush. A boy in a saffron cloak leans his head against the worn stone wall, his lips curved in a small, secret smile. A girl in indigo scribbles faint notes on a scrap of parchment, her quill a quiet whisper in the warm dark. Historians still argue whether this hush was meant to be a test of endurance or a space for the soul to rest. A long, soft breath that carried the weight of every dream and every quiet rebellion. Some say it was the voice of the abbey itself, others that it was simply the slow, patient rhythm of lives lived close to the earth. You watch as the girl in teal shifts, her fingers brushing the boy's hand, and in that small touch you see the bright, warm spark of the laughter that turned the hush to gold. The boy glances at her, his eyes bright in the soft glow, and you feel how the hush holds them close, how it turns every breath into a promise. The professor pauses, his voice trailing off like a thread in the dark, and for a moment the hush seems to hold the whole world, each flicker of the rushlights, each small breath of the students, each quiet promise folded in the soft dark of the hall. The chicken shifts in the girl's lap, a faint rustle of feathers that sends a soft smile across her face. The boy in russet covers his mouth to hide a quiet laugh, and you feel how the hush bends to their warmth, how it folds their laughter into something safe and sure, and in that gentle, patient quiet, you see how even the smallest spark of mischief can turn the hush into a soft, bright glow. How even in the quietest corners of the abbey, the promise of laughter can bloom like a small, bright flower in the cold. You lean back, your breath slow and steady, and let the hush settle into your bones. Because even here, in the soft, warm dark, you know the laughter is never lost. It's just waiting, quiet and sure, in the hush that holds every bright spark safe. The hush of the hall grows deeper, wrapping every breath in a soft, slow promise that feels as old as the worn stones under your feet. The professor's voice drones on, but it's a gentle hum now, the words turning to a quiet tide that rocks you closer to sleep. The girl in teal shifts, her fingers tracing the curve of the small bundle hidden in her lap. The boy in russet watches her, his eyes bright in the flicker of the rushlights, and you see how the hush folds around them like a soft cloak, every breath a quiet promise that laughter waits just beneath the silence. The student in a faded indigo robe leans against the cold wall, his eyes drifting shut, and you see the faint smile that lingers on his lips, a small, secret memory of the chicken's bright cluck and the warm, soft laughter that turned the hush to gold. Historians still argue whether these small rebellions were part of the life of the abbey or just fleeting sparks in the cold dark. Some say they were the heart of the hush, others that they were just bright echoes that warmed the silence for a moment before fading away. You feel the hush settle deeper, the slow, patient breath of it folding every small sound into something warm and safe. The professor pauses to sip from a small wooden cup, his eyes drifting to the girl in teal, and you see the faint curve of his lips, a soft, secret smile that says he remembers, too. The girl tucks the small bundle deeper into her cloak, her fingers gentle on the soft feathers. The boy in russet shifts closer, his breath slow and warm in the quiet, and you see how the hush holds them both, how it bends to their laughter, even now. The professor clears his throat, his voice a low murmur in the hush, and you see the small, warm flicker of understanding in his eyes. He lets the hush hold the room close, lets the laughter linger in the soft edges of the quiet, and you feel how even here, in the cold heart of the abbey, the hush can turn to something bright and kind. You lean back, your breath soft and slow, and let the hush settle around you like a blanket. Because even in the quietest places, you know the laughter never really leaves. It just waits, patient and warm, in the hush that holds every bright memory close. And as the professor's voice weaves through the warm dark, you close your eyes and let the hush cradle you. Each breath a soft promise that the laughter will return, bright and sure, in the quiet heart of the abbey's night. The hush of the lecture hall grows softer, deeper, folding every small breath and slow heartbeat into its gentle embrace. You watch as the girl in teal shifts in her seat, her hand resting on the small bundle hidden in the folds of her cloak, her eyes half closed in the warm glow of the rushlights. The boy in russet leans back, his fingers drumming a quiet rhythm on the edge of the wooden bench. You see the way his eyes catch the flicker of the rushlights, the small smile that curves his lips in the soft hush. Around you, the other students move in slow, patient silence, each one wrapped in the gentle breath of the hush. A faint clink of a wooden cup echoes in the quiet, the professor pausing to take a careful sip. The sound is small and soft, but it carries in the hush, a gentle note that folds every small sound into something warm and kind. Historians still argue whether this hush was a burden or a blessing. Some say it was a silent weight that pressed every thought flat against the cold stone. Others that it was a cradle, a soft promise that even the quietest voice could find a place to bloom. You see how the hush bends to the small movements of the girl in teal, the gentle rise and fall of her breath as she leans closer to the boy in russet. Their shoulders touch, and in that quiet, simple press of warmth, you see the small, bright spark of laughter that still glows in the hush. The chicken shifts in the girl's lap, a faint rustle of feathers that turns the hush into something bright and soft. She smiles, her eyes bright in the flicker of the rushlights, and you see how the hush holds her smile close, folding it into the soft breath of the hall. The professor lowers his cup, his eyes sweeping the room, and you see the faintest hint of a smile at the corner of his lips. He clears his throat, the sound small and soft, and begins to speak again, his words weaving through the hush like a slow, warm river. The girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers stroking the soft feathers hidden in the folds of her cloak. The boy in russet leans closer, his breath a quiet promise in the warm dark, and you feel how the hush holds them both, how it cradles the soft echo of laughter that still glows in the quiet. And as the professor's voice fills the hush once more, you lean back, your own breath slow and sure, and let the quiet settle around you like a soft, warm tide. Because even here, in the patient hush of the abbey's night, you know the laughter is never gone. It's just waiting, bright and sure, in the quiet promise of the hush. You let the hush of the hall wash over you, warm and soft as the glow of the rushlights that flicker against the cold stone walls. The professor's voice weaves through the quiet like a slow, patient song, each word a careful step in the gentle hush. The girl in teal shifts, her fingers brushing the soft feathers hidden in the folds of her cloak. She lifts her eyes to the boy in russet, her lips curved in a soft smile that seems to catch the light and turn it to gold. The boy grins back, his breath slow and even in the hush, and you see how the quiet folds around them, gentle as a soft cloak. The hush isn't empty. It's alive with the small, bright spark of laughter that waits in every shared glance, every soft breath that holds the promise of something more. Historians still argue whether this hush was meant to silence or to cradle, whether it was a test or a gift. Some say it was a prison, others that it was a place where the heart could bloom. You feel it now, the way the hush wraps around the professor's voice, around the slow, gentle movements of the students as they shift and sigh in the quiet. The boy in russet leans back, his head tilted just enough to catch the flicker of the rushlights, and you see the soft curve of his smile, the quiet warmth that still glows in the hush. The girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers curling around the small bundle hidden in her lap, and you see how the hush cradles that soft, bright secret. The gentle breath of feathers and laughter that waits in the folds of her cloak. The professor pauses, his eyes lifting to the soft, warm dark of the hall, and You see the way his gaze lingers on the girl in teal, on the boy in russet, on the quiet glow of their shared laughter. He lets the hush breathe, lets the silence hold them close, and you feel how the quiet is not an end but a beginning, a soft promise that even the coldest stone can be warmed by the bright, small light of laughter. You lean back, your breath slow and even, and let the hush settle into your bones. Because even here, in the cold heart of the Abbey's night, the laughter is never lost. It lives in every soft breath, every gentle touch, every quiet promise that the hush will hold it close. And as the professor's voice begins again, low and warm in the hush, you smile, knowing that the laughter will return, bright and sure, in the gentle breath of the quiet that holds every bright spark safe. The hush of the hall grows softer still, the flicker of the rushlights turning every shadow to gold, every breath to a quiet prayer. You watch as the girl in teal tucks a stray curl behind her ear, her fingers brushing the soft feathers hidden in her lap. The boy in russet leans close, his shoulder warm against hers, and you see how the hush folds around them both, gentle as a lullaby. The professor's voice weaves through the quiet, a slow, steady rhythm that seems to hold the soft laughter in its gentle tide. You see the way the hush bends to every small movement, the soft shift of a cloak, the quiet scratch of a quill, the faint rustle of feathers that still echoes in the dark. Historians still argue whether these small moments of laughter were cherished or scorned. Some say they were the bright heart of the Abbey, others that they were small, sweet rebellions that slipped through the careful cracks of the hush. You see the truth in the way the girl in teal smiles, in the bright, quiet promise that lingers in the warm dark. The boy in russet leans back, his fingers tracing the rough grain of the wooden bench, and you see how the hush holds him close, how it turns every breath into a soft, warm promise. The girl glances at him, her lips curving in a smile that lights the hush like a candle in the dark. The professor pauses, his eyes soft in the warm glow, and you see how even he can't help but smile. A small, secret curve of his mouth that says he knows, too, how the hush can hold laughter close like a quiet blessing. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the slow, warm air, and feel how the hush wraps around you, soft and sure. The rushlights flicker, the warm glow turning the cold stone to honey and gold, and you know, the hush is not a prison. It's a cradle, a soft, patient breath that holds every small joy safe. The girl in teal leans her head against the boy's shoulder, her breath a soft sigh in the warm dark, and you feel how the hush bends to hold them both, how it folds their laughter into something bright and kind, and as the professor's voice begins again, low and steady in the hush, you smile, knowing that even here, in the cold heart of the Abbey, the laughter is never lost. It's just waiting, soft and sure, in the gentle breath of the hush. The hush of the hall settles deeper, soft as a warm blanket pulled close against the cold dark. The professor's voice weaves on, a slow and steady cadence that feels as old as the stone walls around you. You see how the hush holds every word, every small sigh, every quiet breath of the students who sit, patient and still, in the flicker of the rushlights. The girl in teal shifts, her hand hidden in the folds of her cloak, fingers curling around the soft bundle that still holds the faint rustle of feathers. The boy in russet leans closer, his breath a warm whisper that curls like smoke in the cold air. The hush bends to them both, wrapping every glance and every small smile in a gentle promise. A girl in a saffron robe at the end of the bench leans forward, her quill scratching softly against the worn parchment. You see how the hush holds even that faint sound close, turning the small, quiet work of study into something sacred in the warm dark. Historians still argue whether these hours spent in the hush were a burden or a balm. Some say they were a weight, others that they were a quiet blessing, a soft, slow breath that let every secret dream and every bright memory take root in the dark. You watch as the boy in russet reaches for the girl's hand, his fingers brushing hers just once, a quiet touch that glows in the hush like the warm flicker of the rushlight. She smiles, her eyes bright as she glances at him, and you see how the hush folds around them both, turning every soft breath into a promise. The professor lifts his head, his eyes sweeping the room, and you see how even he feels it. The soft glow of laughter still alive in the hush, the bright warmth of small, quiet rebellions that turn every cold stone to something warm and kind. You lean back in your seat, the wood hard but the hush soft around you. and you let the quiet settle into your bones. The girl in teal lowers her head, her hand still resting on the small bundle, and you feel how the hush holds the faint memory of feathers, the soft breath of laughter that turned the morning to gold. And in that gentle, patient hush, you see how even the quiet can be alive with the promise of something bright and kind. You see how the hush is not an end, but a breath, a soft, warm space that holds every small joy, every quiet laugh, every gentle promise that the heart can still bloom in the dark. The hush of the hall folds tighter. Each breath and small rustle of wool cloaks a thread in the quiet tapestry that wraps around the room. The professor's voice slows, each word a careful note in the warm dark, and you see how the hush has softened even him, turning the weight of his lesson into something gentle and kind. The girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers still wrapped around the small bundle that holds the bright, quiet memory of feathers. The boy in russet glances at her, his lips curving in a faint, secret smile that glows in the soft flicker of the rushlights. You watch as the hush cradles them both, patient and sure, the cold stone walls around them turned warm by the soft breath of laughter that still hums beneath the quiet. A boy in indigo leans back against the rough wood of the bench, his eyes half closed, a faint smile ghosting across his lips as he remembers the bright, feathered spark that turned the hush to gold. Historians still argue whether these small moments of rebellion were acts of defiance or just bright breaths of joy. Some say they were a quiet hymn to the heart's need for laughter, others that they were just small, warm flickers in the cold dark of the abbey. You feel how the hush holds every breath. Close, how it folds the faint scent of beeswax and rosemary into something soft and sweet. The professor's eyes soften as he scans the room, and you see how even he carries the memory of the laughter, tucked like a bright, warm ember in the quiet of his chest. The girl in teal lifts her eyes, and for a moment, the hush bends around her smile, turning it into something soft and bright that lingers in the air like the warm scent of fresh bread. The boy in russet leans closer, his shoulder brushing hers, and the hush breathes with them, patient and alive. You close your eyes, your breath slow and even, and let the hush settle into your bones. Because even here, in the cold, quiet heart of the abbey, you know the laughter is never gone. It lives in every soft breath, every gentle touch, every small, bright memory of a chicken's quiet cluck in the warm dark. And as the professor's voice carries on, low and steady in the hush, you smile, knowing that the quiet is never just silence. It's a soft cradle for every bright spark, every small, secret joy that will bloom again when the hush turns to laughter once more. You lean back on the hard wooden bench, feeling the hush settle deeper still, warm as the slow breath of sleep. The professor's voice weaves through the quiet, a low, gentle murmur that echoes against the cold stone walls like the soft beat of a lullaby. The girl in teal sits with her head bowed, her hand resting on the small bundle in her lap. The faint rustle of feathers is a soft, secret sound that only she can hear, a quiet promise held safe in the hush. The boy in russet shifts closer, his eyes soft in the warm glow of the rushlights, and you see how the hush folds around them both. Gentle and sure, a girl in saffron tilts her head back, her eyes half closed, a faint smile curving her lips. You see how the hush holds her breath, how it carries the small, bright echo of laughter that still lingers in the soft dark. A boy in indigo rests his chin on his hand, his eyes distant and dreamy, lost in the quiet rhythm of the hush. Historians still argue whether the hush was meant to keep the world out or to hold it close. Some say it was a wall, others that it was a cradle. You feel it now, the way the hush gathers every breath and every small smile, turning the cold air warm and alive. The professor pauses, his hand resting on the worn edge of the lectern, and you see the faintest glimmer of a smile in his eyes. He knows the hush has shifted, that it holds not just the slow weight of his words, but the soft, bright glow of laughter shared and held close. The girl in teal lifts her head, her eyes meeting the boy's, and you see the hush bend around their quiet gaze, folding it into something tender and warm. The boy's fingers brush against hers, a soft touch that glows in the quiet, and the hush seems to breathe with them, patient and kind. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the hush fill your lungs, soft and sweet as honey. The rushlights flicker, their gentle glow painting the rough stone with shadows that dance like bright memories. And you know, even here, in the quiet heart of the abbey, The laughter is never lost. It waits, warm and sure, in the hush that holds every bright spark safe. You feel the hush settle deeper still, a soft weight in the cold air that wraps around every small breath and gentle smile. The professor's voice drifts on, each word a slow, careful thread in the quiet tapestry of the hall. Around you, the flicker of the rushlights turns the stone walls to soft, honey gold, and you see how the hush holds every sound close. The girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers resting on the small bundle hidden in her cloak. The faint rustle of feathers is a secret note in the quiet, a soft promise that glows in the hush. The boy in russet leans closer, his breath slow and warm, and you see the small smile that curves his lips in the soft dark. A boy in indigo leans back against the wall, his eyes half closed, a faint smile lingering like the last warm note of laughter in the cold. A girl in saffron traces the edge of her parchment, her fingers moving in slow, patient circles, the hush cradling each quiet breath like a soft, secret prayer. Historians still argue whether the hush was a shield or a gentle blessing. Some say it was meant to silence, others that it was a space to let the heart breathe. You feel it now, how the hush bends to every small smile, how it carries the soft echo of laughter like a bright ember in the cold. The professor's eyes move slowly over the rows of students, his gaze soft and warm, and you see the faint smile that flickers at the corners of his mouth. He lets the hush hold the room close, patient and kind, and you feel how even he carries the memory of the bright, feathered laughter that turned the morning to gold. The girl in teal lifts her head, her eyes bright in the warm glow, and you see how the hush holds her smile like a soft, warm promise. The boy in russet shifts closer, his shoulder brushing hers, and the hush breathes with them. A gentle cradle for the small, bright light that lives in every shared glance. You close your eyes, your breath slow and even, and let the hush fill you, soft as a whispered dream. Because even here, in the quiet heart of the Abbey's hush, you know the laughter is never lost. It's just waiting, quiet and sure, to bloom in the gentle breath of the hush. And as the professor's voice weaves on, low and warm in the soft dark, you smile, knowing that even the quietest hush can hold the bright, warm glow of laughter safe. You sit still in the hush, feeling the slow, patient breath of the Abbey wrap around you like a warm cloak. The professor's voice weaves on, low and steady, each word a soft step in the quiet rhythm of the morning. Around you, the students sit with heads bowed, their eyes half-lidded in the gentle glow of the rushlights. The girl in teal shifts, her hand resting on the small bundle in her lap, her breath slow and even in the soft dark. The boy in russet leans close, his eyes bright in the flicker of the rushlights, and you see how the hush holds them both, turning every small smile into a quiet promise. The hush is not empty. It's a soft, warm tide that cradles every breath, every faint memory of laughter that still glows in the cold. Historians still argue whether this hush was a gift or a gentle test. Some say it was a cage, others that it was a cradle. You feel it now, how it turns the cold stone to something bright and kind, how it holds every small promise close. The professor pauses, his eyes drifting over the rows of students, and you see the small, secret smile that flickers at the corner of his lips. He knows the hush has shifted, knows that even in the quiet, the laughter still lingers like a bright thread in the dark. The girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers brushing the soft feathers hidden in her lap, and you see how the hush holds her breath like a soft song. The boy in russet leans back, his hand resting on the worn wood of the bench, and you feel how the hush cradles his small, warm smile like a promise that even here, in the quiet heart of the Abbey, the laughter is never lost. The hush grows deeper, soft and sure, each breath a small, bright promise in the dark. You let it settle around you, the warm flicker of the rushlights turning the cold stone walls to honey and gold, and you know, the hush is not an end. It's a beginning, a gentle space where the laughter waits to bloom again. You close your eyes, your breath slow and even, and let the hush carry you like a soft tide. Because even in the coldest silence, you feel the bright, quiet glow of laughter waiting, patient and warm, in the hush that holds every gentle promise close. The hush of the hall grows deeper still, each breath and small shuffle of feet folding into the soft, warm quiet that holds everything close. The professor's voice is a slow, steady murmur, weaving through the gentle dark like a lullaby. You watch the flicker of the rushlights, the soft glow turning every shadow to honey and gold. The girl in teal lowers her head, her hand resting on the small bundle hidden in her lap, the faint rustle of feathers a quiet memory in the hush. The boy in russet leans close, his breath slow and sure, and you see how the hush bends around them both. Patient and kind, a boy in indigo shifts on the bench beside you, his eyes half closed, a small, secret smile playing at the corners of his lips. You see how the hush holds that smile, how it cradles every quiet breath like a promise that laughter still lives here, soft and warm in the gentle dark. Historians still argue whether this hush was a space to rest or a test of the soul. Some say it was a burden, others that it was a gift. You feel it now, how it turns every small sigh, every gentle breath into something bright and alive, how it holds the echo of laughter like a soft ember in the cold. The professor pauses, his gaze lingering on the girl in teal, and you see the faint curve of a smile that flickers in his eyes. He knows the hush has changed, knows it's a cradle for the small, bright promise of laughter that turned the morning to gold. The girl in teal lifts her eyes, her gaze meeting the boy's, and you see how the hush holds their smile like a soft prayer. The boy in russet leans back, his breath slow and warm, and you feel how the hush carries that quiet promise like a gentle tide. The flicker of the rushlights softens the edges of the cold stone, turning the hush into something warm and sweet. You close your eyes, your breath matching the slow rhythm of the quiet, and you let the hush settle into your bones. Because even here, in the soft, patient dark, you know the laughter is never gone. It lives in every shared glance, every soft smile, every small, bright breath that glows in the hush like a warm spark in the cold. And as the professor's voice carries on, low and sure in the quiet, you smile, knowing that the hush is not an end, it's a promise, a soft, warm breath that holds every bright spark close, waiting to bloom in the gentle glow of the dawn. The hush of the hall wraps tighter still, a soft, slow breath that holds every small sound close in its gentle rhythm. The professor's voice drifts through the quiet like a river in the dark, each word a soft note in the patient lullaby of the hush. The girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers resting lightly on the small bundle in her lap, the faint rustle of feathers a soft echo of laughter in the warm dark. The boy in russet leans back, his eyes half closed, and you see the quiet smile that curves his lips, the hush holding it like a soft promise. A girl in saffron sits a few rows ahead, her hands folded neatly on her lap, and you see the small, bright memory of laughter that still flickers in her eyes. A boy in indigo leans against the cold stone wall, his breath slow and steady, and you feel how the hush carries every quiet sigh, every soft smile, like a gentle tide in the dark. Historians still argue whether these moments of hush were a burden or a quiet blessing. Some say they were a cage, others that they were a cradle for the soul. You feel it now, how the hush is not just silence. It's a soft, warm space that holds every bright spark, every small, bright laugh, close and safe. The professor lifts his gaze, his eyes soft in the flicker of the rushlights, and you see how even he carries the hush like a quiet prayer in his chest. He lets the silence breathe, patient and kind, and you feel how it bends to every small movement, every gentle promise of laughter that still hums in the warm dark. The girl in teal lifts her head, her eyes meeting the boy's, and you see how the hush folds around them both, a soft cradle for the small, bright promise they share. The boy in russet shifts closer, his breath a quiet warmth in the hush, and you see how the laughter lives there still, bright and sure, in the soft edges of the quiet. You close your eyes, your breath slow and even, and let the hush settle into your bones. Because even here, in the cold, quiet heart of the abbey, you know the laughter is never lost. It lives in every soft breath, every gentle smile, every small, bright promise of warmth in the dark. And as the hush deepens, you smile, knowing that it's not the end. It's a promise that the laughter will return, bright and sure, in the gentle glow of the dawn. The hush of the hall grows deep and slow, a soft tide that carries every breath, every small smile, in its gentle embrace. You watch as the girl in teal lowers her head, her fingers resting on the small bundle of feathers, the last quiet echo of laughter held safe in the hush. The boy in russet leans back, his eyes half closed, and you see how the hush holds him too, patient and sure. The professor's voice grows softer, each word a slow, careful step in the warm dark. He pauses, his eyes lingering on the rows of students, and you see the faintest curve of a smile that glows in the quiet, soft and secret as a whispered prayer that a girl in saffron closes her eyes, her hands folded in her lap, and you see how the hush carries her small smile like a gentle blessing. A boy in indigo shifts on the bench, his breath slow and steady, and you feel how the hush wraps around him, a soft promise of warmth in the cold stone dark. Historians still argue whether this hush was a shield or a soft cradle. Some say it was a burden, others that it was a gentle space for the soul to rest. You feel it now, how it carries every bright memory of laughter, every small warm spark, like a quiet song in the dark. The professor closes his eyes for a moment, his breath slow and deep, and you see how even he carries the hush in his heart, a soft, steady promise that every small joy, every gentle laugh, lives on in the quiet breath of the abbey. The girl in teal glances at the boy in russet, her eyes bright in the soft glow, and you see how the hush holds their quiet smile, how it folds every small breath into something warm and sure. The boy leans closer, his shoulder touching hers, and the hush seems to sigh around them, gentle and kind. You close your eyes, your own breath slow and even, and let the hush settle into your bones. Because even here, in the soft, warm dark, you know the laughter is never lost. It lives in every soft breath, every quiet smile, every small, bright promise that the hush holds close. And as the professor's voice grows softer still, fading like the last glow of the rushlights, you smile, knowing that the hush is not an end. It's a beginning, a soft breath that cradles every small spark of laughter, every gentle promise of warmth in the cold dark. Let your breath grow slow now, soft and even as the hush of the abbey's quiet night. Let the warm glow of the rushlights fade in your mind, and feel the gentle hush settle around your shoulders like a soft, patient cloak. Each breath is a promise of rest, each small sigh a warm echo of laughter held safe in the dark. Close your eyes and feel the hush cradle you, the soft weight of the quiet wrapping around every slow beat of your heart. You're safe here, in the gentle breath of the hush, where even the smallest smile can turn the dark warm and kind. Let the memory of laughter drift through your thoughts like a soft, bright dream. The gentle cluck of the chicken, the soft rustle of feathers, the bright, warm spark of mischief that turned the hush to gold. Let it settle into your chest, a quiet promise that even in the darkest night, the laughter lives on, patient and sure. Feel your body grow heavy, each breath a soft tide that carries you deeper into the quiet. The hush holds you close, a gentle tide that carries every small promise, every soft, warm breath, safe and sure. Let your thoughts slow, each one a soft step into the dark. Let the hush cradle you, patient and kind, and know that even here, in the cold, quiet night, you are never alone. The hush will hold you close, every small smile, every quiet breath, safe in the gentle dark. And as you drift deeper into the warm hush, let the laughter settle in your chest like a soft ember, a gentle promise that the warmth will return with the dawn. Sleep now. You're safe. You're warm. The hush will hold you close.